Check this out. So Russell Westbrook just re-signed with the Clippers, and according to Jake Fisher, there's some mutual interest between the Nuggets and the Clippers on bringing Russ to the Mile High. Huh. Is that a match?
Well, Denver has some financial issues, as we've discussed. 2 max salaries. Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, actually 3 with Michael Porter Jr. Aaron Gordon makes north of $20 million a year, too. So they have very limited flexibility. And if Kentavious Caldwell-Pope leaves, which I think is probably likely at this point, they're going to have a hard time replacing him in the backcourt. So 2 very different players. Westbrook with the speed, shot creation, certainly not the spot-up shooter and defender that KCP is. But Denver's going to need to get creative. That's one of the things that I think hurt the Nuggets a year ago when some of the veterans off that championship team last season in 2023, Jeff Green, Ish Smith, others, Bruce Brown walked out the door. They had a hard time replacing them. They tried to do it with younger guys and obviously lost to Minnesota in the second round of the playoffs. So these apron rules are real and significant, and Denver's one of the high-spending teams who has very limited flexibility. So we'll see if there's a way they can add Westbrook to their roster, especially if the Clippers just want to get off of Russ's contract at $4 million to create more flexibility either for Paul George or to try to sign another player.
You know, as a second unit force, Russell Westbrook can still play, obviously, at this point in his career and still make things happen because of the spacing issues. Playing on the floor with a team that is dominated in terms of possession by Nikola Jokic makes a little less sense. Basketball-wise, how would this work?
Well, I think it works really well from this standpoint. You know, one, he probably can run your second unit, but 2, also, they've lost a lot. Like, losing KCP is going to, I think, significantly impact their roster makeup. I mean, KCP's one of the best on-ball perimeter defenders in the league. Couple that with his ability to shoot it. He's a great shooter. He also is terrific at playing without the basketball. So for them to lose that and think that Brown's going to be able to step in, and I like Brown, but he's not ready to do that.
Christian Brown.
Yeah. He's not ready for that. So in essence, not that Westbrook comes in and starts, but he's a valuable force. He's a terrific rebounder at that position. He's a consummate competitor. I think it's an upgrade for the roster. I don't think there's any question about it. If you look at them absent KCP, I don't think they're a contender. I just don't. That's such a lot to lose for that group, especially when you look at the rest of those teams in the Western Conference and the fact that those teams are still improving. So I just feel like right now, if you're the Denver Nuggets, you've got to upgrade your roster significantly, especially if KCP walks, which I can't imagine a scenario where he doesn't. He just opted out of $16 million, I think it was, right?
Yep.
So he's going to get well over 20, 24, 25.
Yep.
Denver can't pay that.
Right.
So that means he's gone. So they've got to now become far more creative in trying to fill out that roster, because I think you guys made a great point. I think Murray and Jokic seem to be a little worn because they're uniquely built. Those 2 guys literally make every play for them down the stretch. And teams, Minnesota was able to wear on them because they could also attack those guys on the offensive end. We saw Boston do something similarly against Dallas, right, where they were able to attack Luka, and they also were able to pressure him and extend him the whole floor. So if you're the Denver Nuggets, you've got to figure out ways to bring about more variety into their offense. Like, they've got to have other guys that can create offense for them to take some of that pressure off of the Joker and Jamal Murray.
You know, the whole discussion last summer with the Nuggets was they lost Bruce Brown, they lost Jeff Green. What are they going to do about the bench? And they drafted older players. They hoped that Peyton Watson, Christian Brown would develop to a point where they trusted them in end-of-the-game situations in the playoffs. Clearly, the bench never quite got to where they hoped it would be, and we used the phrase non-Jokic minutes a lot last season because they weren't very good for a second straight year. If they lose KCP, what kind of a blow is that to their depth? And maybe this Westbrook move, if it happens, addresses some of that. But what are the options there?
I think they clearly need help in the backcourt, Matt, especially experienced veteran help. Because keep in mind, Reggie Jackson's also gone
They just
off of
moved
last
him,
year's
right,
team.
yeah.
Reggie Jackson had a $5.25 million player option. He opted in, but Denver, we showed the roster and talked about their payroll issues there. They needed more flexibility, so they sent that contract to Charlotte along with 3 second-round picks. They had to incentivize the Hornets to take Reggie Jackson's contract. So without Jackson, potentially without Caldwell Pope, you mentioned some of the other veterans, perimeter players, Bruce Brown, Ish Smith, Jeff Green, who have gone out the door in recent years.
Bruce Brown was their de facto backup point guard, by the way, even though it's not his natural position.
Right. So the challenge becomes without salary cap space, with limited assets to exceptions and things like that. How do you replace those guys? And veteran minimum is something that every team in the league can offer at any time. That's not appealing to veterans, especially at this stage in free agency. Maybe guys, Greg, if their market dries up, they eventually get there in their minds. But nobody's excited now into free agency to take a veteran minimum when they think they have a market greater than that. So Denver's going to have to get creative. We'll see if, the more I think about Westbrook, I think I like the fit when Jokic is on the bench, right? And when Jokic or Murray on the bench, especially to get you through the course of 82 games, maybe not as much in the playoffs, but in the regular season, can eat up some minutes. You can play a different way because I struggle to find a experienced veteran guard in the $4 million range, which is what Russell Westbrook makes, a guy making that salary or less, and that's not far from the minimum, that would help Denver in potentially impact winning, or at least keep them competitive, Matt, to your point, when Jokic is either on the bench or out of the lineup due to injury or foul trouble.
Well, and he's, we've seen what he can do physically as well. There are nights he's going to win them games if he winds up there.
Oh, there's no question about it. And I think that's to Ryan's point. Like, you almost look at Russell Westbrook like a middle reliever. He's a guy that can eat minutes up for you in the regular season where you don't have to put that strain onto a guy like Jokic, onto Jamal Murray, because he plays with such energy and such force. And remember, this is a Denver team that likes to play fast, which I think really fits into what he is. Because remember, even with the Clippers, that first year he came over, they didn't play as fast. They started to ramp up this past season with more pace. I think Denver provides more pace, and I think the more pace you play with, the more impactful Russell Westbrook is. And I also wouldn't discount his impact of playing on the floor with Jokic. I think Jokic is such a special player that he would find a way to get the best out of Russell Westbrook for stretches in the game, especially in the regular season. And then what happens is you develop trust over time. Now you get to the postseason, I think it gives Michael Malone a little bit more flexibility. We forget, too, at Russ's size, he can guard 3 positions. Sometimes you could even play him at the small forward, depending on the matchup. He plays a lot bigger than his frame. And so those are things that, over the course of a season, you find out about a player. We've seen it happen many times where guys don't seem to be as good, but then they get in the right situation. A case in point is Aaron Gordon. He was a cast-off for the Orlando Magic. He's come here and been a godsend for the Denver Nuggets. And so those situations happen based on your personnel. So I wouldn't be surprised if he went there and found success.
Westbrook's become a better cutter over the course of his career. He's a lob target as well. And just ask Aaron Gordon about what that means playing alongside Nikola Jokic.
It's a great call. And again, anytime you play with a guy smack dab in his prime when you talk about Jokic, listen, he makes everybody better who's on the floor. And so you're going to bring in a Hall of Fame talent who's still got a lot of juice in the tank. I don't think there's any question about that. Again, and you're not asking him to come play 38 minutes a night. I think it would be a good – listen, they've got to improve their roster. 2 straight years now that they've gotten worse roster-wise, right? They've lost a lot of impact. They're going to have to address that, or they're going to end up ultimately having to make a trade.
They're also a pick-light team from the deals they've made, bringing in Aaron Gordon, sending out Reggie Jackson, and some of the other moves they've made to upgrade their roster, which have been generally good moves. They won the championship a year ago and were one of the best teams again this year. But to your point, you don't want a great player in his prime, and Nikola Jokic, who's won 3 of the last 4 MVPs, to feel like he's in a declining situation. Jamal Murray is also up for an extension this year. It looks like they're going to give him a max. So those 2 guys should be in Denver for a long time, and Jokic and Murray. The question then becomes, how do you build the best team around them? And frankly, with the new CBA, Are they able to do that with Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon still on the roster? I think if Denver's not able to do some other things and upgrade with lower salaries to a level they're comfortable with, they may have to explore the market for those guys and see if there's somebody who's maybe a better fit, but also is more cost-controlled long time, especially as Jokic and Murray's salaries continue to ascend going forward.
The free agency news continues.